In the spring of 1996, Mount Everest beckoned with a siren's call. It was a season of commercial ambition, with multiple teams vying for the summit, believing they could tame the world's highest peak through sheer will and technology. Rob Hall, head of the respected adventure consultants, led one of the most prominent teams. He was known for his meticulous planning and a stellar safety record, which gave his clients a sense of profound security. His friendly rival, Scott Fisher of Mountain Madness, projected a more free-spirited image. Fisher was a powerful climber, but his organization was newer, and behind the scenes, he was already battling exhaustion from the immense logistical challenges. Journalist John Krakauer was on assignment, tasked with writing about the commercialization of the mountain. He joined Hall's team, transforming from a detached observer into an active participant in the story that would unfold. Among the clients was Beck Weathers, a pathologist from Texas. Climbing was his escape and his passion. He had unwavering faith in his guide, Rob Hall, to get him to the top and back down safely. The early days of acclimatization were grueling but filled with optimism. The teams moved up and down the mountain, their bodies slowly adjusting to the thin, life-sapping air of the high Himalayas, a necessary and dangerous ritual. They pushed higher, past the western Khum and up the imposing Lhotse face. Each step was a battle against gravity and oxygen deprivation. The summit felt closer, yet the mountain always held the upper hand. On the evening of May 9th, the teams gathered at Camp IV. Perched precariously on the south col, this was the death zone, a place where the human body was actively dying. From here, they would launch their final push. Shortly after midnight on May 10th, they set out for the summit. A string of headlamps bobbed in the darkness, each light representing a dream. But the mountain had its own schedule, and it was already unforgiving. Progress was dangerously slow. A critical bottleneck formed below the summit at the Hillary Step. Crucial fixed ropes had not been set, forcing each climber to wait, burning precious time and bottled oxygen as they lingered. Despite the delays, several climbers reached the top. For a fleeting moment, they stood on the roof of the world, experiencing a profound sense of achievement. But they had ignored the clock, a fatal error at this altitude. As the afternoon wore on, the weather began to turn with shocking speed. What began as light snow morphed into a full-blown blizzard. The mountain was unleashing its fury upon the exposed and exhausted climbers. The descent became a desperate fight for survival. Visibility dropped to mere feet. The wind howled with hurricane force, ripping away body heat and creating a disorienting, terrifying whiteout that erased the path back to camp. Lost and just a few hundred yards from the safety of Camp IV, a group of climbers collapsed. Among them were Beck Weathers and Japanese climber Yasuko Namba. They could only huddle together and wait for a rescue that might never come. Mountain Madness guide Anatoly Baukriv had descended to camp earlier. Realizing the gravity of the situation, he repeatedly charged back into the storm alone, a heroic effort to find and rescue his stranded clients. High on the mountain, Rob Hall was trapped with his client Doug Hansen. His radio calls to base camp grew weaker. He was patched through to his pregnant wife in New Zealand for one last, heartbreaking goodbye. When morning broke, the storm had passed, revealing the devastation. Scott Fisher and Rob Hall were gone. The climbers on the col were presumed dead, their bodies left where they had fallen in the unimaginable cold. But then a miracle occurred. Beck Weathers, left for dead, stirred from his hypothermic coma. Blinded and horribly frostbitten, he somehow found the strength to get to his feet and stagger towards the distant shapes of the tents. His appearance at camp was an apparition, a ghost returning from the grave. His fellow climbers were stunned into silence. They had written him off, and his survival seemed to defy all logic and medical science. Weathers was in a horrific state. His hands were frozen solid like blocks of wood. His face was blackened by frostbite. He had survived the night, but his ordeal was far from over. He still had to get off the mountain. John Krakauer made it back to his tent, physically intact but emotionally shattered. He was haunted by the events, wrestling with survivor's guilt and the feeling that he could have, and should have, done more to help. A daring high-altitude helicopter rescue was mounted. Lieutenant Colonel Madden Khatri C.H. Hetry pushed his aircraft to its absolute limit to evacuate the most severely injured survivors, including Beck Weathers from the Western Cwm. Beck Weathers would ultimately lose his right arm below the elbow, all the fingers on his left hand, and his nose. Yet, against all odds, he was alive. His will to return to his family had fueled his impossible journey back. In the end, the 1996 season claimed 12 lives, making it the deadliest in Everest's history at the time. The tragedy sparked a fierce debate about the ethics of commercial climbing and the hubris of those who attempt to conquer nature. The mountain remains, indifferent to human ambition and sorrow. It teaches a brutal lesson, that the summit is only the halfway point, and that true success is not standing on top of the world, but returning safely from it.